I didn't choose the house. They did. I was 22 when they sat me down at the plastic kitchen table and said, "We're too tired, too old. It's time you stepped up." The roof was leaking. The siding was chipped. One bedroom didn't have a door, and the basement flooded every March. But they called it home, and more than that, they called it legacy. They looked me in the eye, my mom with her crossed arms and deadpan voice, my dad with his smirk like everything was already decided, and said, "You want to prove you belong? Start with paying for what you live in." So I did. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. I took the graveyard shift at the gas station, stocked shelves at a discount chain in the mornings, cleaned apartments on Sundays. I gave up sleep, time, skin, blood. I gave up me. The mortgage was in their name. That's what they told me. "You're too young to be on the title, and besides, we earned this house. You're just helping." But the bills came to me. Every month, in my mailbox slot, on my phone, on my back. They didn't help. My sister Natalie helped even less. She lived in the house rent-free, drove my dad's old Lexus, took online courses she never finished, spent afternoons doing her makeup in the bathroom I scrubbed after mopping apartments for cash. "She's focusing on her future," Mom would say. "She's fragile," Dad would add. And me? I was the tool, the hammer, the sponge, the one they pulled out when the ceiling sagged or the fridge died, the one who could miss a shift and still manage to scrape enough together to keep the lights on. And every time I got close to breathing, every time I started to think, maybe I can do this, maybe I'm building something that will be mine someday, my mother would remind me, "You're only here because we allow it." I believed her. Because who else would take me? I had no savings, no time, no friends left. I worked, paid, collapsed, and got up again. I didn't notice what they were doing at first. They'd ask weird questions at dinner if I ever thought of moving, if I wanted to travel, if I felt stuck. Once, my dad asked, "If you had to leave in 24 hours, what would you take with you?" I laughed, thought he was joking. He wasn't. Because 3 years into this, after 36 months of bills, missed birthdays, skipped meals, and cleaning up after a family that never thanked me, it happened. I came home from a double shift. My uniform still smelled like bleach. My feet were throbbing. I was counting tip money in my head, wondering if I had enough to buy groceries and new insoles, when I saw a white envelope taped to the front door. No greeting. Just a sentence, printed in bold. "The house has been transferred. New ownership in effect immediately." I stood there for a full minute, maybe longer. My brain refused to understand. I walked inside. Nothing looked different. Natalie was on the couch painting her nails. My dad was watching TV. My mom stood at the stove cooking something that smelled like onions and lies. "Hey," I said, "what is this?" They didn't answer. So I held up the paper. "What is this?" My mom finally turned around. Her expression didn't change. "We sold it," she said casually. I blinked. "What?" "The house," Dad added, flipping the channel. "Gone. Sold. Papers were finalized last week." My heart dropped. To who? That's when Natalie smirked. She held up a key. To me. I felt the air go out of my lungs. "No," I said, shaking my head. "No, I've been paying for this place. Every month. I worked 3 jobs." "You paid to live here," Mom interrupted. "No one made you." "You said I was helping with the mortgage." "And now we don't need help," she said, like it was simple math. "Natalie's ready. She's focused. She's been planning for this." "Planning?" I laughed dry, angry. "She doesn't work. She doesn't even know how to unclog the damn sink." "She doesn't have to," Dad said. "She's not useless." That word, that sentence. It dropped on me like a steel beam. "She's not useless." Like I was. I stared at them, the people I fed, cleaned for, paid bills for, sacrificed my life for, and realized they hadn't just sold the house behind my back. They'd sold me. They'd sold the lie that if I just kept grinding, I'd someday belong. Natalie twirled the key on her finger. "You'll have 10 days to move," she said sweetly. "As the new owner, I'm giving you until next Friday. After that, you're trespassing." I felt something inside me split. It wasn't grief. It was the death of delusion. I wasn't their daughter. I was their labor. I turned around, walked up the stairs, packed a duffel with my clothes, my chargers, and the photo of me and my dog from when I was 12, the last time I remembered smiling in that house. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Because none of that would hurt them. Not like what was coming next. I moved out that night. Not 10 days later. Not next week. That night. I left the keys on the hallway table, the ones they made me use to unlock the back door while Natalie always walked through the front. I didn't leave a note. I didn't even take everything. Just the things that reminded me of who I was before they made me feel worthless. An old notebook, a chipped mug from my first job, and Caleb's art box. Yes, Caleb. Because he existed even if they pretended he didn't. My son, my reason, my silence, my strength, and my biggest shame in their eyes. They never called him by name. He was it. That boy. The reason she failed. They made me raise him in the attic, called it your space, like they were generous for letting us live up there with the spiders, and no heat. Now we were gone. We moved into a small studio that barely had enough floor space for a mattress and a folding chair, but the air was clean, and no one called him a mistake when he asked for more cereal. The first night, I sat on the floor with my knees to my chest while Caleb colored and said, "Do we live here now?" I said yes. He looked up at me and asked, "Will this place love us?" That question stayed in my veins. The next morning I went back to work. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't rant. I didn't cry in the freezer. But something had shifted. I wasn't just working to survive anymore. I was watching. Listening. Not just to my own life, but to theirs. Because the thing about people like my parents, people who build their house on lies, is that they're loud, sloppy, arrogant. And Natalie? She was the loudest. Within days, she posted a selfie on the front porch of the house, finally owning something real. Home sweet home, earned it, with the same potted plant I used to water every morning before work. I felt the anger rise again, but this time it didn't crash. It simmered. That same week, a woman came into the store while I was restocking. Mid-50s, designer bag, too much perfume. She looked around, then asked to speak to the manager's daughter. I stared at her. "I'm sorry." She said, "The woman who used to own the house on Grant, red shutters, told me her daughter was handling the down payment for her sister's future." I blinked slowly. My chest tightened. "She said you'd be working here, that you could give me a character reference for the loan." That's when I knew. They weren't just lying about the sale. They were using my name, my job, my image as the hard-working daughter to prop up Natalie's fraud. I kept it professional. "I'm afraid you'll have to reach out to them directly," I said with a smile. She left, disappointed. I ran to the break room, locked the door, pulled out my old notebook, and started writing. Because now, I had something I didn't have before. Proof. I started connecting the dots. Natalie had no income, no job history, no credit. But the loan had gone through, which meant someone vouched for her. And I knew exactly who that was. Mom. She'd lied to the bank. She'd signed in my name, used my check stubs, maybe even used my ID. And that's when the idea was born. I didn't want the house back. It was never really mine. But I wanted to make sure they'd never sit comfortably in it again. Not Mom. Not Dad. Not Natalie with her potted plants and fake inspirational quotes. So I made one call. To my friend Amber, the one they always called a bad influence because she wore ripped jeans and studied accounting at community college. She picked up on the first ring. "Is this about your family finally getting what they deserve?" she asked. I smiled. Yes. We met after her shift. I brought the notebook, the timeline, the witness, the signatures. Amber brought her laptop. She didn't hack anything. She didn't break any laws. She just did what they always underestimated women like us for. She read the fine print. Because the house transfer? It wasn't clean. There were irregularities, forged employment records, falsified joint documents, income statements from accounts that didn't exist, enough to raise flags. Amber drafted a report, not for the bank, not for the police, but for someone who cared more than both, the loan insurance auditor, the silent assassin of mortgage fraud. And once we sent it in, we waited. 10 days later, Natalie posted again. This time her caption was short. Some people can't stand to see you win. Jealousy is ugly. But I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because behind the screen, the house was already slipping through her fingers. I didn't celebrate. Not when the second letter arrived at the house. Not when Natalie's smug porch selfies disappeared. Not even when the foreclosure notice was quietly pinned to the front door with a yellow strip that read, Lender Review Pending Fraud Alert. I didn't smile. But I did sit across the street in Amber's car the day it happened. The morning was gray, the kind of dull sky that feels like paper soaked in cold. Natalie stepped outside wearing silk pajamas and fur slippers, still carrying her phone like it was her sword. She bent down, saw the notice, read it, and froze. She looked up, scanning the street. I ducked down. Amber didn't. She just leaned back and whispered, "You want to go get pancakes?" I said yes, because the house was gone. Not mine, not hers, but gone from their hands. That's what happens when you build ownership on lies and signatures that never belonged to you. The insurance company opened an internal fraud investigation. The bank froze the mortgage. And just like that, the dream home became a rotting liability that couldn't flip or refinance. No buyers, no more lies to stitch it together. And because the deed was transferred under falsified terms, guess who got a letter? My parents. Their names were still technically tied to the original paperwork, meaning they were liable, meaning Natalie's mess was their mess. Suddenly, they remembered I existed. My dad showed up at my job, red-faced and shaking. He cornered me in the parking lot, huffing like a broken furnace. "You did this," he spat. "You think you're smart?" I didn't say anything. He grabbed my arm. "You think you'll get something from this? You won't. That house is cursed now. You ruined it." I leaned in slowly and whispered, "Good." Because it wasn't about getting the house back. It was about taking away the one thing they held over me my entire life. Their control. That house was their shrine, their weapon, their stage for every insult and twisted performance they ever put on. And now it was rotting under yellow tape and debt they couldn't charm their way out of. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from a name I didn't recognize. Inside was a check small, just enough to cover 1 month of rent and a note. "I don't know what they did to you, but they talk about it in hushed voices now. You made the unshakable feel small. Respect." I kept it. Not the money. The note. Framed it. Hung it over the kitchen sink. Because in this new place, this small studio that smelled like freedom, I didn't need big things to feel safe. I just needed space where no one questioned my worth. Caleb and I built a new life, slowly. He drew trees and windows and houses that didn't have monsters in them. And on his birthday, when I asked what he wanted most, he said, "Can we stay here forever?" I said, "We'll go wherever we want, and no one gets to take it from us." As for them, the last time I passed the old house, it was boarded up. Natalie was gone. Rumors said she fled to another state with someone else's name on her lease. My mom had started telling people she wasn't feeling well these days. And my dad? I heard he started sleeping in the garage after he found out the credit line they used to build their kitchen got canceled. But I didn't chase updates. Because some stories don't need to be followed. Some stories end when the page turns not with applause, but with silence. Because when you take everything they used to trap you and burn it down without a match, that's not revenge. That's freedom. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching